Okay, so we're going to get started. And Ellen Siegel is our first guest speaker. So, Ellen, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm in the Washington chapter, and I'm a Jewish American. First, I want to thank all of you for the work that you've been doing around the war in Gaza. I was born within days of when Anne Frank went into hiding. I grew up in a Holocaust, post-Holocaust era. I went to Hebrew school, I had a bat mitzvah, and I went to a Jewish school of nursing. So I have a very firm understanding of the history of my people. In the late 60s, like most of us, I was active, and I had never met an Arab, much less a Palestinian. In the early 70s, I traveled to Europe and I needed some medical attention. And I decided to go to the American University of Beirut Hospital. When I was in Beirut, I started to ask questions about the Palestinians. Who were they? Blah, blah, blah. I was taken to a refugee camp called Burj al Barajni. When I was in the camp, I met with an old man who had been exiled from his home in 1948. And I heard from him the story of the Palestinians, how he had lost his home, his land, his orchards. And in my heart, I've never left that hospital room. I was in this camp during the Munich incident, if you all remember that. And Israel bombed the south of Lebanon in retaliation for the killing of Israeli soldiers, which the Palestinians did not do, the Germans did. But I volunteered my nursing services to the Lebanese Red Crescent, and I went to the south of Lebanon. While I was there, I saw incredible destruction that the Israelis had inflicted on the villages. Okay. After I spent several months in Lebanon, and I tried to learn as much as I could about the Palestinians. I then went to Israel and I worked on a kibbutz. I was there for several months, and I started to learn about the discrimination of many Israelis towards the Arab population. After Israel, I decided to go to London. In London, I joined an anti-Zionist Jewish group and a Palestinian solidarity group. One of our demonstrations was in front of the Israeli embassy, and the Jewish people in the group decided to give up their right of return. As a Jew, I have a right to return to Israel. Any Palestinian who was born in Israel is not allowed to return. And so we had a demonstration. I'll put up a picture afterwards to show you. I then came back to the United States and joined Palestinian solidarity groups. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. And I won't get into the reasons why, but they invaded Lebanon. They surrounded West Beirut, which is a capital city. They would not allow food, water, medications in. This is a precursor to what's just happening in Gaza. And so I volunteered to go to Beirut and be a nurse for the Palestinians. I was assigned to a hospital called Gaza Hospital in Sabra refugee camp. And I was there during the massacre. If any of you remember the massacre of Sabra and Shatila in September of 1982. After the massacre, I volunteered to go to Jerusalem to testify before the Kahan Commission of Inquiry. The Kahan Commission of Inquiry into the massacre was led by a judge, Aaron Barak. He is now the Israeli judge on the International Criminal Court in The Hague, which is kind of interesting. He whitewashed the whole Sabra and Shatila massacre, and it seems he whitewashed the whole ICJ also. Okay, for every year for the past, I don't know, maybe 15 years, I've gone to Beirut in September to commemorate this massacre. And here we are in 2024, And I'm looking at what's happening in Gaza and the pain and the suffering that's going on, and the amputations with no anesthesia, the starvation, the lack of water, the lack of food, the most pathetic pictures I have ever seen in my life of these children under the rubble. The bread that these little children are trying to eat is a flat, round, brown thing that's made up of grass and animal feed. There are over 100 aid trucks waiting to go in there, and they're being blocked. And there are Israeli demonstrators that are standing there demonstrating against having any of these trucks come in. And the Israeli Defense Force is allowing that to happen. There's a cultural genocide going on there. They have completely flattened Gaza. All of the mosques, the schools, the universities, everything is gone. There's nothing left. And so it's very important that we keep up, and hopefully this nightmare will end soon. And that's it, basically.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite a story.
It's a long story, and I can't, yeah.
Did you want to show us something? You said you were going to
Yeah.
show, was it? Yeah.
I'll just show this picture. Many of you have seen this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
You need to keep talking so we can.
Okay, so as you can see, I can return, and the Palestinian, even though I was not born there, and the Palestinian who was born there is not allowed to return. She was born in Jerusalem. Her name is Ghada Karmi, and she's a famous Palestinian writer. She's written a number of books. So I guess what people have to keep doing is supporting the BDS movement, keep the demonstrations going, keep the phone calls. I don't know what else to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Cheryl, you have your hand up?
Yes, a couple of things. What was the name of the camp in Lebanon where there was a massacre in 1982? Can you say it again?
Sabra refugee camp.
Sabra?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And just to say, BDS is a boycott and divest.
Divestment.
And what's the S? Sanctions. Okay. Thank you. Just to tell you that President Biden will be going along a road relatively near my house tomorrow. I have worked out where he's going to a big fundraising event in the fancy Pony Hills near me. I've tried to get all our pro-Palestinian people out there to line 1 mile of this road to wave signs at him. I, just decided I found the place. If you look at the FAA website, the Federal Aviation Authority, it tells you when airspace is closed off. And so I worked out using the FAA website when his plane, Air Force One, is going to be coming into the Bay Area, leaving the Bay. Anyway, so I've tried to predict when he's going to be going to this fundraising event. So there are many people here in the Bay Area. Believe me, they were on the 101 freeway the other day, stopping it, and so on and so forth. So
excellent.
And I know hearing from other branches of WILPF, a lot is going on throughout the country. And when you said Washington, you meant Washington State is where you are.
No, Washington, D.C., District of Columbia.
You meant Washington, D.C. Okay, D.C. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ellen. I hope you can write some of this down.
Thank you. I have a lot of stuff. If you look me up on the internet, you can find some of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, I see that Judith has her hand raised too. Judith?
Yeah, I just wanted to have an opportunity to thank Ellen for bringing to us your story, and you had it so clearly presented, and it's very impactful. Thank you very much for coming and bringing to us so clearly.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, so our next speaker is Gloria McMillan. So Gloria, why don't you take it away?
Okay, I'd also like to thank, can you hear me, everyone? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd also like to thank Ellen for a really good presentation. I'm moving up closer in case there's any problems of hearing me. Well, this is going to be a total shift to another dimension. And what I'm bringing to you is going to be on screen. Let me see if I can open this up here and get it actually working so that you don't have to look at us. We can look at this. Hopefully this is sharing. It takes a minute for my colors to adjust on my screen and to open up. I don't know if you're seeing it yet.
We're seeing
How's-
a
how's
screen
that?
now. There it
Is
is.
that going okay? I'm going to try to move it to full screen mode. So hang on, everyone. It takes a moment to do that as well. It's thinking about it. Come on. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes, very good.
Okay, and hopefully I can move this down a bit because it's taking up part of my screen. Okay. What I would like to talk about this evening is the areas where WILPF can do an even better job on communications, external communications, things outside of our usual insider news networks where we talk one peace group to another. And what I need to begin with, though, is I'm going to see if my down arrow is going to work. Yeah, I'm going to start with some history of Jane Addams because I think we have a lot of myths about her, and I've had these knocked out of my head by Rima Lunine-Schultz, who was our keynote speaker at the first Restart Chicago branch in November 2023. She's got to be one of, if not the world's authority on Jane Addams and Hull House, one of them. And she says much of what we think we know about Jane Addams and Hull House is wrong. so better get used to it. She's got a book coming out. And she's in her 80s, losing her eyesight, so this may be her last hurrah. And I'm going to pass along some of the things that she has told me. We often think of Jane Addams. I don't have a picture of her here, but she's always looking very prim, like Saint Jane or some Victorian, Queen Victoria type woman. She was far from that. Jane Addams led the US women in courting reporters, using PR, and using all the modern telecom when that came in. So our new CCS committee will be doing some of this as well and connecting with that older type of WILPF where we used all the up-to-date communications and tried to think of new ways to use them, not just get into social media, everybody's doing that, but think of new ways to engage with rhetoric and with creative use of mass media. So this vital energy from Jane Addams from the early years where it was so up to date can come to our own Chicago and national past and present. So what Rima told me was that Jane Addams thought of her work in Chicago as a laboratory. She would try everything. She would not abandon media because it was not getting her in. She would just consider that a bit of a challenge, and she would outflank them and do all kinds of things. So here's some of what Jane Addams did. If you've heard of the Chautauqua movement, that was a big movement in the 19th century of middle-class people self-educating. They'd go to these campgrounds in New York State, I think that's where it was, and from all over the country. And it was it was a big cultural event because they had clubs all over the country, Chautauqua clubs and book clubs. So Jane Addams went there year after year in the summer. She lectured. They put out her books in very expensive editions. The book clubs had lecture notes and lessons to use from Jane Addams books. And it was a whole national movement. She wrote in magazines like the Ladies' Home Journal, which was very influential, The Atlantic, and The Century. She had a press agent and clipping service. I'm going to repeat that. She had a press agent and a clipping service. She was very concerned of the image that Hull House had. This will floor you. She was a leader of the Progressive Party. They called it the Bull Moose Party. In 2012, she was at the Republican convention and she seconded the nomination of Teddy Roosevelt. she was very influential in that progressive party, which would have done just about the same things that FDR did in the 30s in 1912, because it was the settlement house people that were writing that platform, and they wanted all these kinds of less barriers between classes, break down some of the racial segregation, and they were hard at work on all that. It was a lot of kind of New Deal era. She lectured against imperialism. She also wrote For the Crisis, edited by W.E.B. Du Bois, I guess we say, and the National NAACP magazine. And she was one of the founders of the National NAACP. She would go to remote places. I mean, she would do anything it took. That's what Rima was telling me. Go anywhere, fly on a little plane, to get Hull House volunteers. They were called residents. So she would travel to all these little hoot and holler towns up in Vermont and anywhere. She went around Europe, and we know about that from her trip, her book called Women at the Hague. During World War I, she tried to stop it by talking to all the different sides. She didn't get embedded with one side's troops. No, she talked to everybody, high people, low people. And she had a whole team of women going around, and the Central Powers and the Western Allies, and talking to people. Then they wrote the book. All of her books came usually from talks and lectures that she gave, or things from her trips. She went to India, to Japan. She had a mastectomy in Japan in her last couple of years of life because she had breast cancer. I believe that's what she may have died of. And a lot of people don't know that her mastectomy was done in Japan. She had a huge FBI file because she was such a media celeb. And J. Edgar Hoover hounded her for the rest of her life, but she persisted. So she didn't give up. I mean, it's good to have demonstrations on street corners, but remember, that is 19th century technology. I'm falling behind here. So our new CCS group is going to reach into some of these unexplored pockets of broadcast media, starting with PBS, TV and radio, because some of our WILPF members in various chapters, and I think Dianne was considering doing it, are starting to attend their community advisory board meetings. There is still one opening for people to get into the mass media. That's to go to these community advisory board meetings. They are not all the same. I happen to live in Arizona, which has got to be one of the tightest, most controlled formats of meetings. But other places, it's very loose. You can make suggestions, you can make announcements, and you can influence your PBS, TV, and radio to be more fair and do more about war and peace issues. So in our new CCS committee, we'll be reporting on those efforts in various branches. Anyone who's interested, and I could put it in the chat later, can contact me at sci-fi2011@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. And if you have more questions about going to a community advisory board meeting at your local PBS. Okay, so this is very important to remember. Jane Addams did not stand on street corners. That is not to put down standing on street corners, but she realized that survival and visibility came from media access. There's another aspect to CCS group, that's arts and WILPF. And our new group will be a home for people who are trying to do the arts as communication. These graphics that you saw, the one that you saw in the beginning of this, they were done by me. I do digital art and digital design for posters for things. And we can work on that. We can do little workshops in the CCS group. So again, contact me. We also do theater. Oops, where did my other one go? Oh dear. I'm having trouble with my, I think I missed a whole slide here. Ah, yes, we also do theater, and we have the Planet Zoom Players. This is an outside group to WILPF, but there are WILPF members who are affiliated with it. We are doing classic science fiction plays that have themes of inclusion, gender justice, and peace. So if that interests you, say, reading theater, they're semi-animated. Contact me about that. So for access to the media and creativity in WILPF, we should consider doing what Jane Addams did and try it all. And I think that's pretty much what I have to say.
That's great. Thank you, Gloria.
You're
Okay.
welcome. I don't know how I did on time there.
I think you're great. Does anybody have any questions for Gloria? Okay. Well, yeah, you said you're going to put your email address in the
Oh,
chat.
yes, definitely. I have to find chat because it's hiding under the 3 dots there. Okay, yeah, I'll put my email.
Okay.
And if
And-
something occurs to you,
Okay. And Ellen, did you have your hand raised, or that was just?
No, I'm curious as to where is Jane Addams buried?
Huh.
just a minute, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna make a mistake on this. Did I get that right? No, see, I already goofed it up. Sorry. Just a
I
minute.
don't think
Yeah,
she heard
yeah.
you. I don't think Gloria heard you. Where is
Gloria?
Jane Addams buried, Gloria?
I did hear, but I made a mistake on my email, so watch out. It isn't 3 exclamation points there. It's with 3 ones. It isn't-
Cedarville, Illinois.
Yeah, that was her home base, and I was going to say I thought it was Cedarville. I wasn't 100% sure, to be honest.
Okay.
So, just remember that we have a whole history in Chicago that was being lost, terribly, scandalously lost. I want to go on just a minute about that. If you've said
Sure.
anything. WILF grew out of that work. There wouldn't be a WILF if it had not been for Jane Addams and the working class of Chicago. She was helped financially and with a lot of the kinds of help that middle class people can give, but her work among those immigrants is really what grew into her view of world peace that we're all participating in WILF. And of course, our next Zoom is going to be about immigration and the Immigrants Protective League formed at Hull House in 1909 and the current situation, almost you could say crisis, I hate that word, but the situation of having 20,000 immigrants suddenly showing up in Chicago over just a few months and what how they're dealing with it. How well are they dealing with it? And how does it relate to what they tried to do in Hull House? Because the kinds of things that were said against immigrants in 1909 are being repeated in 2024, unfortunately. So there you go.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Gloria? Okay. If not, Andre, you're on next. Thank you, Gloria.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Namaste. Peace. Thank you, Diane, and thank you to Ellen Thomas and Cheryl Spencer for your assistance. When I first joined the WILF Boston branch in 2003, I worked on events with Laura Roscos and Pat O'Brien, Joan Eckline, and Elizabeth Leonard. And Elizabeth was fantastic. Everyone was. But today I'm here to present an emergency peace plan because our house is burning, says Greta Thunberg, because it is for both peace and climate. And people are afraid and worried for their children. These wars are changing the world in the wrong direction towards militarism. So a new global peace movement is prepared, a people movement. A global movement of nonviolence led by women, but not exclusive to women, that is designed to prevent, diffuse, and stop war and change the world because stopping war affects all issues. It's time to bring WILF's main mission to the forefront. I get excited because an amazing opportunity is here now. After the war began in Gaza, and to this day, the whole world is trying to find a way to end the violence. When the violence does subside, it's the perfect time for non-governmental women leaders to issue a call to women, a worldwide unity campaign, and ask women to be the first to rise up and unite as the peacemakers, and then invite the men. So men are included. And one last step remains to begin. I presented the plans to UN Secretary General Guterres' staff, and I'm preparing to return to meet the last step in motion. So I've designed the strategy to begin and sustain the movement with the funding and the largest marketing plan ever devised. I've come from a business background and want to use my knowledge for peace. I can show that when women leaders join together, we can raise millions and millions of dollars. And this is more than just a peace movement. It's an anti-war movement, but also a movement of goodwill to create trust and respect among nations and people. I'm not your enemy. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm nonviolent. There are two main segments, peace action and a philanthropic foundation to facilitate changing ourselves and changing our cultures of violence by working together for a commonality, the children. We can't miss this opportunity. I've set up parameters to unite the people in every village, town, and city, unite the movements, all the religions, and mayors and community leaders in every country under one umbrella, nonviolence. So I'm here to say that I believe it's time to harness the power of women in nonviolence, to create a new power, the political power, to set a precedent for all time. And all that's needed is the last stimulus. One or two prominent women leaders to join the team now, to start a chain reaction. So here's an example. Oh, excuse me 1 second. Share. These women can move mountains. Beatrice Finn can unite the whole entire anti-nuclear movement. Naomi Klein, the entire climate movement. And Alice Walker, the entire people movement. And then Karen Armstrong can unite all the religions and all the spiritual leaders. Pat Mitchell, she's already started the Connected Women Leaders for the Climate Movement. Fantastic. And I've met and talked with all these women, or at least emailed with them. And then Osprey Oriole Lake from the climate movement, she said it fantastic. It's time for a fierce, loving call for a global women's movement. We are in a fight for our lives. There's no doubt about it. The only way is to lock arms and stand in solidarity. So this is what excites me. And then here's, to show the passion of women leaders, here's Betty Williams, Nobel Peace Laureate, at the high-level forum on the culture of peace.
The power of love is incredible if we use it correctly. Now my work continues. We've built the first city of peace in the world, in the region Basilicata, Italy. They said, you'll never do it. You know, I love it when somebody tells me I can't do it. But I have to say to them, look, would you move? Just move. You're blocking me. I know it can be done.
Oh, thank you, Betty Williams. Gandhi and King lived and died to teach us nonviolence is the answer. And the evidence is everywhere. And women have already been uniting. So now's the time for women to unite the world to create peace. Unite the whole world. Women leaders can make it happen. I'm a promoter and developer. I'm not the one to do it. But I'm a man committed to promoting women and nonviolence. Ela Gandhi, the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, recently wrote to me, I fully support your initiative. So I'm here to ask for your assistance. I've done my best. It's time for the women to enlist women leaders. And I'm looking for people to work directly with me. So please contact me anytime. I'm going to put my name, my email in the chat. But I believe the world is in trouble. And without women leading the way, there will be no change. The men aren't going to change. It's time for women to rise up and unite. We may not have another chance. The world needs women now. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Andre.
Peace and love.
Thank you. I think many of us totally agree with your sentiments.
Thank you.
So are there any questions for Andre? Ellen, I think you had your hand up. I think I see 3 hands, but Ellen, I thought I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
Listen, thank you very much, Andre. At the moment, though, we don't even have control over our own bodies.
Well, there's many obstacles. I've encountered big ones and small ones. We're up against the biggest challenge in the world. Trying to stop war in a time now when there's war going on, it's changing the world terribly. So yes, it's going to be difficult, no doubt about it.
Yes. Okay, Judith. Judith and then Cheryl and then Teresa. And I think that'll be it unless, okay, for starters. Okay, Judith. You're muted, Judith.
Yeah, I don't have a question for Andre, but I just want to chime in because he and I are working on the same idea, which is getting women organized to make change happen. And I'm getting, just an hour or 2 ago, I found out about another organization from an institute called the Oracle Institute that has this same idea. And in fact, I think they're at least a couple of years ahead of my planning. So this is the idea that the way we have been doing things with men kind of running the show isn't working. And so that the idea is here that it's time to listen to women's voices. And we have every sign in the world that women are rising up. And I won't belabor it, but just take encouragement from the fact that Andre and I are on this. There are other institutes that are on this. We just need to find a way, a place and a way to unite them. That's the trick. And I think it won't take long. I think within this year, sometime this year, there will be a coming together of women that will be able to do this.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
thank you.
Okay.
It's time for women to take the world stage. Absolutely.
Yes. Cheryl and then Teresa.
So I've been helping Andre a little bit by drafting letters, sending letters to women in different organizations, different parts of the world, who we are trying to bring into this idea, because as he says, a chain reaction. He's looking for enough women to influence other women. We are not making it just white Caucasian women. And I know some people have complained about that, but there's an effort to bring in indigenous people, people of color, people from the global south. So if you want to help, please write to Andre and start helping. It's mostly doing stuff at home, and some emails. It's not that burdensome. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, Teresa.
Well, I believe, Andre, you and I have talked about this
Yes.
approach. And I think the difference I have with you is that in my tradition of Black radical feminism, we have never needed men to lead our movement. And what I really kind of object to is this approach, because it does tend to be rather Eurocentric. In my tradition, particularly now, I was late getting on the call because this is Black History Month. So because I come out of a tradition of civil rights and human rights, I'm asked to speak and meet with people a lot during this month. So there are lots of Black History Month things. And I noticed that Alice Walker was included, that's great, because hopefully she's still a member of WILPF. But for those of us on this call, WILPF is a vehicle for us. And if we would build the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, we would be moving the world on the question of women leading. I attended a CSW NGO meeting about youth being involved, and all of these young women from Syria, Fiji, Mongolia, India, they were meeting among themselves, women under 30 for the most part. And I think that is a crucial thing that we need to address, because many of us will be dead in a few years, quite frankly, because those of us in our 60s and 70s and even 80s, we're going to be dead in a few years. So what we have to really do is recruit younger women. The newest WILPF member I know, Kim Poole, who I recruited on the 20th, that was yesterday. She's 38 years old, and she's ready to jump into WILPF and be active. She didn't know anything about WILPF before I told her, but she's been going to the CSW meetings for years. So we just have to do a better job of building the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and stop letting the branches die. Cleveland is closed, Seattle's closed, Portland's closed, San Diego's closed, St. Louis is closed. We've got to rebuild the branches in the United States so we can build a stronger will. Over.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Fantastic. I like your outlook. When I first saw WILPF at my first peace convention that I went to, and I read the materials, I knew it was for me. And I've been working hard, and I had this idea after September 11th, when it was the men, the military minds that were using the war to solve the problems, and we lost an opportunity to show compassion and empathy. We had it from around the world, and we lost it. And so I'm a strong supporter of women and change. It's not that I have all the answers or that women have all the answers. It's yes, when we work together, and women and nonviolence together is my theory, as I was talking about, that there's the strength, and I see that the men will follow. That's what I think will happen. So I'm a huge promoter of women and nonviolence. Thank you for having me, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I know George has to leave soon, so she wanted to speak. So George,
Thank you very much, Diane. And thanks, Andre, Teresa, Cheryl, and Ellen. What a powerful presentation you shared with us. I'm glad this was recorded. I'm George Friday. I am the program chair for WILPF on the US board. I live in Shelby, North Carolina, and I'm a member of the Southern Piedmont branch. I want to tell you a little bit about my work or my role as program chair, and encourage you, if you're not part of a issue committee, to be part of one. So I get to work closely with and help coordinate the work of issue committees. Now, most of us, or the best thing for us to do, is work for peace and justice where we live, in our branches, in our state, in our regions. But there are also maybe areas of interest that you might have. We have 8 issue committees, 9 if you can't CSW. The Advancing Human Rights Committee, I'm going to put the committee list in the chat. And there are links to most of these that are here, that you can take a link and go look at that issue committee's details on our website, and say, oh, I'm going to drop in to their next meeting. So, and you'll hear from some of these chairs tonight, because Dianne has invited us to speak. So advancing human rights covers a breadth of human rights issues, including border and migration issues, the UN Decade for People of African Descent, which is also taking up reparations, ending mass incarceration, which is also taking up ending the death penalty and solitary confinement, housing justice, and I feel like I'm missing one, but one of the co-chairs for Advancing Human Rights, Teresa Elamine, is on this call, so she can tell you more. The CCS is our newest issue committee, and communications, culture, and sensitization. I still need to learn more about what sensitization means. Gloria McMillan, who spoke earlier, is the chair of that committee, and she told us a little bit about communication and some best practices there tonight, but could learn more. They don't yet have a description on the website, so you'll have to follow up with that email Gloria put in the website, in the chat, to find out more about that issue committee. Cuba and Bolivarian Alliance is a committee that does have a link on the website, and it doesn't look like the hyperlink made it when I copied and pasted. So I'll just put the link to WILPF US in the chat before I leave. And then you go to Our Work, and all of the issue committees will be on the right side of your page. So Cuba and Bolivarian Alliance is around helping to end embargoes and boycotts, mostly of Cuba. There's also the Disarm End Wars Committee, very important, especially these days as we're working to create a ceasefire and some peace, both in Ukraine and in Gaza. There's the Domestic Prisoners of War issue committee, and that takes up the cause of individuals who've been exposed to and experienced intimate partner violence. And the chair of that committee, Dee Murphy's also on tonight, and she could probably say more there. Earth Democracy is an important committee. I believe when Andre started speaking, he talked about climate and peace, and Earth Democracy cares a lot about that, also about water, and knowing that, looking into the future, a few decades, are we going to be able to have safe water? And our Congress theme this year is water on the front lines. So water is important there. And there is more information on the website. The Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee, I don't see a chair for that here. Maybe Ellen Thomas. That also is very active right now, as is Disarm, about the current state of things. And Women, Money, and Democracy is the last official issue committee, which also has descriptions on the website. So WILPFus.org is the website. I'll put a link in the chat to there. Go to the right and you'll see, is this the right? Yes, it is. Go to the right and you'll see Our Work. Click on that. You'll see descriptions of the different issue committees, and there is a contact for each of them, an email and or a phone number, so that you can join their next meeting. And the folks on the call here tonight, I'm sure Cheryl, Teresa, Dee, I don't see anyone else who's chairing it, and Gloria may either put in the chat or let folks know.
Lenny,
Oh,
hey,
hey,
I'm not
Lenny.
invisible, Lenny.
I'm so sorry, I did not see you. And I hope if I did not describe your issue committee correctly, Lenny, you'll fill in for me, and you can tell people the date of your next meeting. Thanks so much for this time. We all have plenty of work to do. Let's get to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the roster, but I know that Martha Collins is on the WILPF board, and Dee Murphy is an international person. So Martha or Dee, did you want to say anything?
I don't have much to say that hasn't already been said. This is a great presentation. I was just telling someone earlier today, I'm always learning more and more about WILPF and about the historical context and things that was going on within the organization at the time, and within, you know, the world at the time. And so I appreciate you all sharing your stories and your experiences, and you know, thanks
Yeah.
so much for your time.
Oh, girl, you know I'm so hungry. What am I getting?
I'm hungry too, George. I just asked my son, what
My
you
goodness.
cooking me for dinner? I know she's not talking to me. I'm messing with her. But
Well,
thank
that
you.
was embarrassing. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me see. So the next, the board members and then issue committee chairs. And Lenny, why don't you go first? To and then we'll have, I know Cheryl wants to speak, and well, we'll just go on. But Lenny, you, go ahead about the Cuba and the Bolivarian Alliance.
Yeah, the Cuba and the Bolivarian Alliance issue committee, as George so truly said, does have a primary focus on Cuba. And one reason that it has a primary focus on Cuba is that Cuba is a world leader in so many of the issues that we all care about, including women's rights. So yeah, we are interested in changing US foreign policy, not just in Cuba, but in Latin America as a whole and globally, changing from a foreign policy built on exploitation, on colonialism, and on racism to a foreign policy based on mutual respect. Good luck, you will say, right? But we're trying. And we would appreciate your help and your solidarity, and we know we have it. Your solidarity, we know that everybody is working on issues that are of primary importance and that we can't all do everything, but we know you have our backs, and we love you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Lenny. Okay, Teresa is not only, she's the chair of the AHR, Advancing Human Rights, but she has her hand raised too. So I guess, why don't we go ahead and take you, Teresa, and then Cheryl.
Well, I really do appreciate it. I've had a very long day, and I generally have a hard stop around 9-ish. I'll try to hang on for as long as I can. But I'm actually the co-chair of the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee. And CC Anderson, who is the Personnel Committee chair on the national board, is the other co-chair. And CC and I know each other from the many years of working together in the NAACP. And so Cece headed up the women in the NAACP, or WIN, WIN, for the state of Georgia for many years. So when I invited her to join WILPF, it was kind of course. And so I'm glad to be working with Cece. She's very busy and she travels quite a bit, but she is the other co-chair. Now, Advancing Human Rights has gone through some really bumpy leadership struggles over the last few years. And we've had co-chairs and we've lost co-chairs, and we've had a chair and we lost a chair. And so now Cece and I, who were just installed in November of 2023, but we had already been working through the working groups. And since George tried to identify the working groups, I'll just be real clear on the working groups. We actually have 3 working groups that are up and functioning, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. And we are taking up solitary confinement, and we meet on the first Monday of every month at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So you'll get a notice if you're on the branches list or on the Advancing Human Rights list. You'll get a notice about the March 4th meeting of ending mass incarceration and the death penalty working group. We also have migration and border justice working group, which is headed up by Adrian Bernal in English, as he says, and he's based in the Metro Atlanta branch, and he's trying to pull together plans to get that working group up and running. And then we have the UN Decade Reparations Working Group, which I convene, and we need to set a new meeting date because this is the final year of the UN Decade for people of African descent. And as you know from the last international triennial, all sections around the world are expected to report back on what we did in support of the resolution on the UN Decade that was passed at the last triennial international in 2022. So we're looking forward to be able to say that we've done a lot in the US section by the time the triennial happens in 2025. Now, a new working group that we're thinking about based on a new member who joined, and she and I are working closely together. She's in the DMV branch, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia, which just was relaunched in June of 2022. And Dianne was there and spoke well. And so we're very excited about the DMV branch. And Kim Poole joined the DMV branch yesterday morning. And so she and I are going to be working together on starting a UN Women, Peace, and Security because Resolution 1325 of the UN Security Council has not really yielded what I expected 12 years ago when I was at the CSW. So we feel the need to really revive that through the CSW process, even though there is a CSW practicum group that Jan Quarterman and Shilpa Pandey are in charge of. We want to have a women, peace, and security working group inside of advancing human rights to take up CEDAW and 1325 and some other very specific issues associated with advancing human rights for women. So that's my report on the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee. And I look forward to seeing, as I have seen many of you at our meetings from time to time in the working groups. But our next umbrella meeting is going to be Monday, March 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So Monday, March 25th is the next Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee, umbrella committee, where all of the working groups report. And we do have minutes from our last meeting, which was February 19th, which will get posted soon. Kim and I are meeting on Friday to finalize those minutes, since we learned from George that we have to have minutes. And I think the Disarm Committee has always been very good at doing their minutes. Well, we're going to get started in making sure we have minutes for the Advancing Human Rights Umbrella Committee. So sorry it takes so long with that. But I do want, I see a lot of new faces and people I have never seen before and don't recognize your name. So I'm looking forward to the recording since I came late, and hopefully you introduce yourselves so I can know who many of the people I've never seen before or heard your names before, that I will get to know who you are. Thank you. And I'll hang on for as long as I can. But it's kind of like long day, almost past my bedtime kind of feeling I'm getting right now. But I'll try to hang on to at least 9:30. So thank you so much, Dianne.
Thank you, Teresa, for your report and for trying to hang on. I appreciate that. Okay, so Cheryl from Disarm wants to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, and most of you have heard a lot about disarm in previous meetings, so I won't go on a deal about that. But I do want to tell you about an action that we're going to be asking all WILPF people to do on March the 10th. Sunday, March the 10th is the Oscar ceremony, and as maybe you've been reading in your paper, the film Oppenheimer, which came out last July, has 13 nominations. So there's been some effort to get the Academy that runs the Oscars to acknowledge the continuing suffering of people from nuclear weapons. Oppenheimer just tells you about the first 3 weapons, right? The one, the test in the desert, and then in New Mexico, and then Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. So we we're going to suggest, I've done it once, but I'm going to send you more details, that you have an Oscars watch party at your house or your flat or wherever it is you live. Invite your relatives and friends to come and watch the Oscar ceremony. When you've got 13 nominations, your name will keep coming up throughout the 2.5, 3 hours it takes to hand them all out. We will provide through an e-alert some documentation for you to show your friends and relatives about why we want to get rid of nuclear weapons. There's information that we've actually already sent to you, the trifold flyer that we developed for you to give out at cinemas where Oppenheimer was being shown, and I still hand it out to anybody who I can engage in a discussion about nuclear weapons. But there is an equivalent to the Oscars in England, in Great Britain, called the BAFTAs, British Association of Film something or other. So the BAFTAs in England and Great Britain are very important too. Oppenheimer had 13 nominations for the BAFTAs. It won 7 altogether. The director, Christopher Nolan of Oppenheimer, won the Best Director BAFTA. They call them a BAFTA. And during his acceptance speech, he acknowledged the hard work of anti-nuclear weapons activists. He said they have done a good job. He wishes them to continue in doing a good job. And I'm going to put in the chat, and we're just going to put it there now, a link to a magazine called NME, where you will actually see his speech, that little bit of his speech, his acceptance speech, where he acknowledged and said, Oppenheimer finished, the film finished on a very down, unhappy note. And so so I'm hoping, so that was good that he acknowledged that there's been a lot of people out there working to get rid of nuclear weapons, which, he thinks is a good thing to get rid of them. So I'm hoping that at the Oscars, he will make a similar speech. We don't know. Well, if he wins, Oppenheimer is going to probably win several Oscars. So somewhere we hope that he will say something. So what we're wanting you to do is organize a Oscar ceremony watch party at your home, invite your friends and relatives, and apply them with some ginger ale and some cake or something, and hand them out information about why we want to get rid of nuclear weapons. So we're again using the Oppenheimer film to advance and advocate for the abolishment of nuclear weapons. And the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is the treaty that's got the best chance of doing that. It now has 70 countries have ratified it, and they've said never going to have anything more to do with nuclear weapons in those countries. And so there are 9 countries that own them. There's another 8 or 9 countries that actually have American nuclear weapons stored in, like Turkey has American nuclear weapons. Italy has American nuclear weapons in their country. So this is just part of the disarm campaign, one of our 11 campaigns to to abolish nuclear weapons. So please look in the chat at that report there, where he did actually mention and thanked the anti-nuclear weapon activists who've been working for decades to diminish the effect of them. So, and I'm going to then put the Disarm chair. So Dianne, Ellen Thomas and I are 3 co-chairs of Disarm. Our next meeting will be this Sunday, the 25th of February at 4:30 if you live in Pacific region. And so if you want to get the Zoom link, you can write to one of us and I'll put that in the chat, the Disarm Chair email address. We have over 60 people on our committee, of which 15, 20 come to every meeting. We meet twice a month. There's so much work to be done. We actually meet twice a month. March the 10th would have been another meeting, actually, right across the Oscars. So we voted a couple of meetings ago to not have the March 10th meeting, with the understanding that everybody's going to have an Oscars watch party at their house or their home, and invite their friends instead of the Disarm meeting, as part of our effort to show how awful nuclear weapons are. So thank you very much, everybody. Hope to see some of you at a future Disarm meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, Cheryl. And as she mentioned, Ellen is also a co-chair. And Ellen is our tech guru tonight. I don't know if Ellen wanted to say anything, but I'm going to open the floor to anyone who has any questions or anyone who wants to say anything. If you have any questions for anyone or anything. Okay, Judith, I see your hand raised. And so unmute.
Now, very quickly, I've been studying war and whether we could end war itself for over 20 years. And it is my conclusion as a biologist and as an academic that it is actually possible, that we would like to do it, but can we do it? And I have culminated all of that into something called Project Enduring Peace. Dianne and I and a few others are working on it. And if you're interested in the idea that women could unite and rise up and get a peace treaty that would be enforceable and would stop international wars, we're not proposing to stop all wars, but we're proposing that if you could end international wars, it would be a foundation upon which you could build and do those resources to do other things, prevent poverty, change your economic system within the country, do a lot of other good work that we need to do if you aren't spending money on wars. And if you're interested in it, in the chat, I just put the link. It's called Project Enduring Peace. And I put the link where you can go read all about it, how it would work, how the treaty would work, and so on. It's in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I see Teresa has her hand raised. She's still with us. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, I was hoping that we could hear from Dee Murphy, since she has so many roles, and the Domestic Partners of War Issue Committee is one, but she's also the Congress coordinator, and I really think we need to hear more about what's happening with the Congress. The thing that happens once every 3 years, which to me should be the highest decision-making body of a democratic organization. And I've just been shocked at the reports I've been hearing about the registration fee is going to be $500 or $600 to go all the way to St. Paul. So if there's anybody here from the National Board or from the Program Committee of the Triennial Congress who could speak to what's going on with the Congress, I would love to hear that before I sign off. Thank you.
Well, next month, that is going to be the whole topic. That's, so we're going to have Nancy Price, and I think Dee will be speaking then, and that will be the topic of our next Jane Addams meeting. So I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything about.
Dee has left the meeting.
Yeah, Dee has left, but stay tuned for next month, and I'm sure there'll be more information being put out because many people are interested in it. I just will say, from what I know, that the registration cost includes meals. Not all, I don't know how many, but it definitely includes meals and includes a rather lovely boat ride. And so these are the reasons that it is, one of the reasons it is at this cost. So, because everything at a hotel is expensive. So, lots of times dinners are quite expensive anyway, or meals are, and they wanted to have a lot of meals all together as a Congress. So, that is one of the reasons it is expensive. I know that. But
Well,
we're going
I'll be looking forward to next month to hear more. Thank you so much, Dianne. Thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions or anything? Because if not, we're going to end the meeting. I see Cheryl has something to say. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Just about the Congress. One can try to fundraise from your own community to help pay if you're going to go in person. I know the last Congress I went to, my branch provided me with some reimbursement of my travel expenses. So this, and I believe this is what's happened in the past, that people, talk to their branches, or maybe you can talk to other organizations in your community if you're not in a branch. And I will be helping to stream via Zoom some of the panels and workshops. I will take my laptop. I have my own Zoom account, and I will be setting up my laptop so that you can, and telling you all where to go for a link to listen to some of those events that will be taking place. I have not, I've offered this, it's been, I think, accepted. I have no idea if there'll be a charge for virtual listening or not. That has not been discussed. And and to reduce my travel expenses, Dianne and I have agreed to share a bedroom in the hotel with two queen beds. So that's another way that we are encouraged to keep down the travel expenses, is to share a bedroom in the hotel, and we're going to see who snores the loudest.
Oh my. Okay. So Ellen, you have your hand raised.
Very quick. I think it's wonderful what you're doing with the nuclear weaponry. I'm wondering about chemical and biological warfare. Israel is using white phosphorus.
I know.
Is there any action, any committee where that comes under? I mean, it's not nuclear, but it's pretty.
No, it comes under the Disarm End Wars Issue Committee. Definitely, and so we know it's happening. We know it's against the convention. There are multiple conventions out there on biological weapons and chemical weapons, and that's one reason we've tried to get this treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons. So we try to educate people about it, and again, it's one of the things when you're writing or phoning your congressperson about the ongoing war, which is one of the things, we are forever encouraging you to contact your congressperson. Saying that white phosphorus shouldn't be used and it's against a particular treaty is one of the things we ask people to tell their congressperson when you're asking them, not to send any more weapons or money to Israel, because that just encourages them to keep on going. So yes, thank you for reminding us about white phosphorus.
Oh, and Dianne, one last thing. I missed Gloria's announcement, if she made it, about the Chicago branch relaunch. and how we can come to the Zoom event, which I believe is Saturday, the 24th. If Gloria could make that announcement one more time about how we could participate in the Chicago branch relaunch, which I believe is coming up on Saturday. Is that still true?
Oh, yes, and we talked about it, but Gloria, go ahead.
Yes, I'll try to paste in, if you can just give me a moment to find the link where people can register. I have it in one of my posts I just sent. Just hold on a second and I'll paste that link, okay?
But there was an e-alert that went out about it, and there's
Oh, yes, there was an e-alert, but I think what
Well,
might be helpful for
yeah.
people tonight is to have that link that they can cut and paste. So let me
Sure,
just,
that's great, but I just want to say there was the e-alert, and then it's been also out to the branches listserv. So hopefully you got it that way too. That's how
I'm
it.
finding
the
that
branches
link as
listserv.
we speak. And
So-
here it is. And just hang on a second.
Okay, so
Oops.
I see Ellen you have your hand raised again, so go ahead. Or is that from old? Oh, that's old? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna get it. I am gonna get it. Here it is. Copy link. Just a second. Don't give up on me. Here it is. This is your link, folks. Can you all see that link? You just highlight and paste that link and you can be registered for free, totally gratis to our Restart Chicago branch, protecting protections for bridges, not walls, immigration in Chicago from 1909 until today, with neighborhood people affected by this huge influx of immigrants, and how Chicago isn't going to let it hurt their championing of human rights. They're not going to become one of these states where cities where they don't care about migrants. They do.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. I registered, so I'm all set. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
good.
What a great meeting, Diane. I'm looking forward to next month. So this is such a great idea to open up the Jane Addams branch for this monthly meeting, Diane. This is really a great idea. I'm really loving it. So
Oh, good,
I'll
I
see
do
you
too.
next month.
But you can catch the beginning. You can listen to the whole recording. It's going to be on WILPF US today. So that on YouTube. So you can go and listen to the beginning that you missed, Teresa. So,
I
okay.
will.
Okay, given that there's no other questions or anything, comments, we will close this meeting. And thank you all so much for attending, and thank you for our guest speakers. And it was just very nice. So thank you all.
Thank you,
Okay.
Diane.
Okay, until next month.
Yeah.
Love you all. Bye.
Love you
Save the
too.
chat. Save the chat. It
Save
has
the
lots of
chat.
good stuff. Save the chat.
How do you save the chat?
Bye-bye.
Down at the bottom, there's 3 little dots.
Got it.